dude, we are so fucking back. Oh, but it's just $70 DLC and it's the full-fledged game. I get it. All right, so I'm not gonna have a face cam for this video as I really want to have it out as soon as possible, and I'm also dealing with some technical issues behind the scenes, but I'm not worried about talking about that right now. Let's just talk about the game. So, Modern Warfare 3's beta has come and, as of right now, is about to finish up, and I've been playing it a lot. About a year ago, I made a similar video on Modern Warfare 2, and if you watched that video, even just looking at the thumbnail for it, you can tell I was less than optimistic about the game. And as much as I still occasionally enjoy the game, I think it's safe to say at this point that they really missed the mark big time with Modern Warfare 2. I won't go too much into it, I've already done that plenty on this channel beforehand, but I think it says a lot that Warzone 2 went from the worst Call of Duty I played at launch to one I can mostly tolerate and even sometimes enjoy now, while Modern Warfare 2 just got worse and worse as time went on. Honestly, I think this is probably the first time I felt this way about a Call of Duty game. And now, after playing the beta for the next game, I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea how Infinity Ward is gonna get trust back from players for their next game, if at all. Their single player and co-op offerings are still stellar, like I'm still gonna defend them on that, but no hardcore fan is ever gonna trust them again with multiplayer. Let's be totally real here. But I won't go on too long about that. Today we're here to talk about Modern Warfare 3, and thankfully it's from a developer that will actually listen to feedback and improve the game ahead of launch. Like, it should say a lot that Battle Rage got nerfed into the ground as quickly as it did for this beta, while Infinity Ward still hasn't fixed that UAV bug over 4 months after it was introduced. And yes, I'm still gonna talk about it, and I'm still gonna bitch. I've talked about this a lot too in previous videos, but Sledgehammer is absolutely goated when it comes to communicating with their fans. Maybe they're not always on top of things, but they'll at least tell us if they're trying to stay on top of things. So I feel good making this video knowing that most of these things are problems that they have either already addressed, or they're open to seeing and making improvements upon, or fixing. So with that said, this is gonna be my beta review for Modern Warfare 3. Let's get into the positives before the negatives. This is an actual Call of Duty game. Thank fucking God. All right, let's list what we've got here. 16 maps. A complete and balanced perk system that has no charge and has trade-offs and variety. We've essentially got wildcards back with the addition of vests. We have Dead Silence as a perk again. We have weapon progression and the gunsmith from the last game. We have red dots on the minimap again. We have a higher time to kill, so gunfires require more skill. Without even considering the new stuff, this is already everything the last two games should have been from a core design perspective. This is classic arcade-style Call of Duty at its best. You have risk and reward across the board. There's all kinds of ways to play that aren't limited like Modern Warfare 2. You can have a stealth build, you can have a rushing build, you can have an aggressive build, etc. Is it doing anything new or revolutionary? Not really. Is it really just that core Call of Duty gameplay just polished to the best it absolutely can be? Yes. And on that front, this game is already better than the first and definitely the second. I legit do not want to play Modern Warfare 2 again after this comes out now, outside of single player and co-op. The core multiplayer experience is just so much worse by comparison, and with everything here in the second game carrying forward to Modern Warfare 3, there's gonna be a lot of content to play around with, so it's not like we're really going to miss much from the last game, outside of, I don't know, maybe maps? Speaking of which, this game's maps. Every map from the original Modern Warfare 2 is back. And man, as someone who didn't get to really experience Modern Warfare 2, well, the original one, you know what I mean. It's been an experience playing some of these for the first time. Some I've already played before, obviously, like Rust, but those ones are still just as fun to play now as they ever were. I now get the hype behind maps like High Rise and Favela. These maps are so much fun to play on. The level of freedom and experimentation you have with them is amazing, especially on maps like High Rise with the roofs and the crane. It state kinda sucks though, if I'm being honest. I don't know if saying that is heresy, but the map's just too big for my tastes. Maybe part of that has to do with the current spawning system, which I'll get into, but you know what's great? I don't have to worry about backing out immediately if I see it because map voting is back too. Even down to game mode voting specifically in 24/7 playlists. And look, again, I know it's ridiculous to praise these things coming back for a full price game, and I can understand the criticism behind it, but you know what? I'm just gonna be honest. I really don't care. With the identity crisis and lack of real focus this series has had generally the past few years, especially with Vanguard and Modern Warfare 2 respectively, I'm just glad the devs are finally starting to focus up again and hone in on polishing what we already like and enjoy. Again, I've said it before and I'll say it again, I'm not gonna blame anyone for feeling burned out after last year, but here's the way I currently see it. The original Modern Warfare 3 did this exact same thing. Across the board, That game, with the exception of maps, was a more polished and balanced version of Modern Warfare 2 with even more content to it. And to this day, it's still my favorite multiplayer in the series. It's proof that all you really need to make one of these games good is to just polish, improve, and add on to what people already love. And speaking of adding stuff, let's talk some of the new stuff. Aftermarket parts are a fantastic addition. If just the Renetti is an indication of what these are going to be like, this is going to make the Games Weapons sandbox the best in the series more than it already is. Cutthroat is a new game mode that I haven't really sunk a lot of time into, mainly because, well, I just didn't really focus on that much, but I think it's fine. It's a really neat and unique addition that we haven't had since, God, I think Black Ops 2 was the last time we had a multi-team game mode like this. That being said, I don't think it's really a quote-unquote evolution of Gunfight like it seems like they're trying to make it out to be. Gunfight is still perfect when it comes to those round-based cage matches, especially when everyone has the exact same loadouts in that game. I hate that Gunfight in general just kind of seems to have been sidelined ever since Cold War. Like, it's there in Modern Warfare 2, but with only 8 maps compared to Modern Warfare 2019's whopping 18, it definitely seems like they're trying to slowly rotate this out. It would be nice to see it come back later during Modern Warfare 3's life cycle, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it. On that note though, let's start getting into the negatives with the game so far. This is probably going to be longer since there's more details to talk about, but considering Sledgehammer is actively looking for this kind of feedback before launch, and considering that they might actually listen to it compared to Infinity Ward, I think I should be as detailed as I possibly can. First up, I'm sure you've heard everyone talk about this, but the two major issues right now are spawns and visibility. The spawns right now are probably the worst part of the game. There's not really a sense of logic or flow to them whatsoever, especially when it comes to objective game modes. In past games, what made the spawns work really well is that they always had a sense of map control. You always had an idea of where you were and where the action was taking place. Infinity Ward introduced a much worse squad spawn system, where it was based on players' locations, which works fine enough for something like Ground War, but for 6v6, it's not great. I'm just gonna be real, it's just not great. Here though, there isn't even a squad spawn system. In general, the spawns seem to have two major issues I've personally noticed: randomization and spawn trapping, or I guess lack thereof. I'll get into it. This clip I got from High Rise probably explains this best. So look around at what's happening here. My team's got control of the B and C flags, and someone from the other team is pushing towards the C flag. I engage, but I lose the gunfight. Now, in any other Call of Duty game that isn't Modern Warfare 2019 or 2, you'd think I'd spawn somewhere behind C flag where there's a lot of room left so I can go back, engage, and maybe stop him from getting our flag. Nope, instead I spawn on the opposite side of the map, close by their A flag. They start taking C, I get caught up in the middle of a fight on the enemy side and immediately eat shit. It is really jarring. I've had several instances where this has happened, where the spawns just didn't seem to work. I had an instance playing Hardpoint on Estate where everyone kept spawning in the exact same area for a while before someone would finally push to the actual objective. And I think this is why spawn trapping is a huge factor to bring up here. Because based on what I've played and how games have navigated, it seems like the game is really scared of spawn trapping teams. And I'll be real, while it can be annoying getting trapped and spawning in the same locations over and over again, this still gave the game a sense of control. If you're trapped, it's up to you to break it. That's always been part of the skill gap for these games. Here, because the spawns seem to flip all over the place so much, there isn't really a skill gap. You have no way of really knowing where you're going to end up. It's a lot similar to the spawn flipping problem Vanguard had at launch before it got overhauled halfway into its life cycle. And the thing is, sometimes they're consistent in the wrong ways. The amount of times I have spawned in the hallways on High Rise or on the basement on Estate is ridiculous. Which, by the way, I think these spawns specifically have to go, or at the very least be toned down significantly. These ones are borderline annoying with how often you spawn in them and how awkward the flow gets trying to move out and get back into the action. Like I said earlier, I never got to really play the original Modern Warfare 2. That game just barely passed me when I got my start with Black Ops and Modern Warfare 3. But even then, I can tell this is not how the original maps played. If the devs are going to bring back these classic maps, they need to play like the classic maps too. The spawns and the spawn logic either need to be identical to how the original game was, or they at least need to have a lot more consistency when it comes to general map control. Visibility is another big issue that I think can easily be fixed by comparison. Player and enemy dots are not only too small, but they're too faded. In addition, it's very easy for player models to blend in with the map, especially on maps like Favela. With this, I think all they really need to do is just make the nameplates and whatnot exactly like how they are in Modern Warfare 2. That game can be just as visually overpowering, but I've never once had an issue with shooting teammates and very rarely have visibility issues with enemies on that game. Now, onto an issue that I personally haven't seen that many people talk about. I could be totally wrong on that, but this is still a massive thing I think needs to be talked about ahead of launch. Let's talk about ground war real quick. On paper, this is the best ground war we've gotten from the new trilogy, but holy fuck is it a technical mess. So far, the maps we've gotten are amazing. They're probably the best ones we've gotten for this game mode so far. Unlike Modern Warfare 2, it seems kind of similar and closer to how Modern Warfare 2019's maps were designed. You can get into the action a lot faster, and things flow, generally speaking, much better than they did in the last game. Pretty much my only complaint for them comes from the lack of variety in visuals, which I guess is expected since these are all from Warzone's next map. But Modern Warfare 2 did a pretty decent job at keeping things visually stimulating and unique across all the maps they pulled from Al Mazrah. But that problem pales in comparison to the mode's technical issues. I've had problems with slowdown, lag, asset pop-in, asset loading, latency, hit registration. I am genuinely shocked that my PS5 didn't straight up crash while I was playing this at times. This definitely needs a lot of polish ahead of launch. I'm sure it's happening and it's underway, but I still feel the need to address it. Also, I know this is a problem that likely won't be resolved thanks to Activision specifically, but who knows, maybe now that Microsoft owns them, they could possibly change course on this during Modern Warfare 3's life cycle. And that's skill-based matchmaking. This has been a hot-button topic for a long while in the games, and I think so far Modern Warfare 3 has been the worst offender of this. Maybe things will change when the game launches and people aren't all in the beta specifically, but I've never felt like I've had to sweat in a Call of Duty game like this, well, ever. Even if they just toned this down a bit before launch would be helpful, because when I'm watching a YouTuber like Jev complain because he's consistently getting games with actual pros at the game, that's kind of a problem. Okay, so what are some other smaller issues I've noticed? So let's see here. The remote turret's timer doesn't work in addition to being kind of inconsistent with actually hitting targets. There's an issue with the gunsmith that I'm sure is going to be figured out once the game actually comes out, but in the beta, you can access locked attachment categories in the gunsmith if you're playing during a game, and you can fully kit out weapons at level 1. Buff the stalker perk, you know, it doesn't have to be shown as Modern Warfare 3, well, original Modern Warfare 3. I gotta keep making these distinctions, it's kind of dumb, but you know what I mean. Better than what it currently is, point being. Footstep audio, I think, needs some adjustments, especially in relation to the bone conductor headset. Teammate footsteps really should not be as loud as the enemy footsteps are, especially when you're wearing this. Tac stance is a nice addition, but I think it needs to feel a little more graceful, to put it one way. I tried the different controller bindings for it, and they all feel awkward in some way to press. Pressing down on the D-pad is not intuitive at all for it, and the left stick isn't really that much better. I ended up settling for the right stick, but even in the heat of the moment, I'll accidentally press it, and it completely messes up any gunfight I have. I noticed that I gravitated towards pressing right on the D-pad as opposed to down, but in general, I do think there needs to be some more control options when it comes to using this outside of just the sticks and one D-pad direction. I don't know if it's going to be really that viable regardless. I mean, this just seems to be a new mechanic that they're bringing in just for the sake of bringing in something new, but I think it needs some more accessibility. Battle Rage, I think, just needs to be a field upgrade again. I'm glad they were on top of nerfing it when it was as busted as it was day one, but the equipment's basically useless now. Just make it function like it did in the last game as a field upgrade. Problem solved. As far as gun balancing goes, it's mostly fine from what I've personally played so far. Really, I think the striker was the only problem weapon here that they got pretty quick on fixing. But I do want to point out the longbow. Fantastic gun, probably my favorite game currently and one of the better snipers I've used, but they gotta do something about that magazine. A gun like this should default have 10 bullets in the mag at most with how consistently it one-shots. Slide canceling is back and... Okay, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I swear in Modern Warfare 2019 and Warzone 1, you could slide cancel effectively by pressing slide, instantly pressing it again, and then going into attack sprint. Here, in order to do it, you have to slide, press jump, and then sprint. I know that there's a delay that has been adjusted to sprint again, but even then, I've had instances where I'll try to start a slide cancel, only for my character to just not slide at all and I end up jumping instead. Maybe this has something to do with the dolphin dive being in here now, but I think, you know, that slide, sprint combo needs to be a viable option again, just like slide, jump, sprint is now. And I think if you're sprinting, especially tac sprinting, and press the crouch button, you'll just immediately slide. Maybe there's something I totally missed in the settings like a dumbass when it came to this, and worst case scenario, I guess I'll just have to relearn this, but the slide in general could still use some adjustments here and there. I think that's basically it. Now, if I have more, I'll post it in the comments, and if you played the game and noticed something wrong with the game too, leave it in the comments below. Any kind of feedback helps, and again, it'll be nice that there's people actually listening to it this time. But in general, I honestly think we're in it for a very good year. This is the most fun I've ever had with the Call of Duty beta, and multiplayer is only going to get better from there based on Sledgehammer's track record. Zombies looks like a ton of fun, what with it basically being DMZ, but with the zombies and seemingly without the bullshit. And the single player gameplay wise looks to be the most ambitious in a long time. Warzone 2 has finally gotten better with the addition of Vandal in the game, as well as Plunder and Lockdown. Things are looking bright now that Urzikstan is finally coming as a Battle Royale map, and best of all, Fortune's Keeping Rebirth Island are returning. Again, I could go on and on about how stupid it is that we even had to ask for all of this back in the first place, but not only have I already said my piece on that beforehand in previous videos, I just did a video on Halo Infinite talking about the same thing. I'm gonna be honest, I really just don't want to go into that same rant again. So this is where I want to hear from you. If you've played the beta, let me know what you thought of it, and again, if you've noticed any issues, talk about them so that maybe more people can be aware of some problems in the game that need to be fixed before launch. If you liked the video, be sure to subscribe. I make videos talking about movies, games, TV shows, and music just like this. And to Sledgehammer, in the extremely rare case that you're actually watching this video, please bring back Resistance from Modern Warfare 3, please, I'm begging you. Any map from the original game would do too, but please, please bring back Resistance. I'm begging you, please bring back Resistance. Or just bring Dome back a third time in a row too. That would actually be funnier, honestly. Just bring Dome back a third time.